So my name's Bill, from Eastern Kentucky, right outside of the beautiful Red River Gorge. And a little bit background about me, pretty normal family on the outside. It's me and my two sisters and mom and dad. But the thing that's different about us is I grew up in a missionary family, and it always felt different. And so when I kind of came back into American society, I always felt a little different than my fellow Americans, and especially when it came to sports. I had all the height, but man, the hand-eye coordination wasn't quite there. Fast forward a little bit into middle school and, getting picked for stuff. I usually got picked last for some sports things, and that started to weigh on me a little bit. And so, I always felt a little awkward. Didn't really find my steps and my stride until later on in college. When it came to sports, I really found a love for the rock climbing. And that was a big part of how I came alive and had kind of a man's identity. It was also at that time in college where I found my role as kind of a youth minister and being able to serve others and help people. And I basically built off of that. I had great mentors growing up that were in youth ministry, and they invested in me a lot, and I wanted to give back, but I felt a deep sense of inadequacy too. So I was like, what'll take care of this is I'll go to seminary and I'll get all the information and the knowledge. Well, the best thing about seminary was in Jackson, Mississippi, I met my wife. Seminary was good, the wife was great. So I get married, and I pretty much ran into marriage. I knew this woman was the one, I was excited, and we, shoved off into the world to kind of stake our claim. I was working in full-time ministry, she was a full-time nurse. It turns out that, when you're a full-time nurse and a full-time youth minister, you don't see each other a lot. But we kept on moving. Very quickly, we got pregnant and had 3 children very, very quick, back to back. And, over time, we had just kind of grown distant. Back on top of that, youth ministry had gotten harder. Ministry itself kind of lost its fervor, and the lights were kind of going out. I felt burnt out, just absolutely burnt out. And there wasn't a lot of flicker in our marriage relationship either. This went on for a while. I tried to deal with it in different ways, but over time, I kind of sank into a deeper depression around it. And for me, that meant acting out in other ways. It was during this time too where I encountered my first professional disappointment. I personally didn't really even think I was looking for a position or opportunity, but I didn't get picked for a job, and that really hammered me, because I really wanted it, and I thought I could make a difference. And after that, my depression just got worse, and I tended to isolate and act out, and it all met a head one morning when my wife came to me in the bathroom. I was getting ready for work. Very distinctly remember that was in our bathroom one morning. And it was one of those, push the brakes moments. And she said, "We can't do this like this anymore." And there probably wasn't much space between that and when she said, "We need to get help." But that was the largest pause I think I had ever heard from her. And it hammered back for me this message of, "Billy, you're the problem, and we got to fix you." And I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what all was wrong, but I knew I needed help, and I wanted us to be able to work things out and not fight all the time. And so I said, okay. And we went to go see a counselor that next week. After 2 weeks of meeting with this particular counselor, he said, "Bill, will you come back and just talk to me?" And he took a risk. And he said, "Bill, today, instead of me asking you a bunch of questions about you, would you be okay with me sharing some of my story with you?" And at that point, he had built a little rapport with me, and I thought, yeah, okay, sure. So he started to share And in those moments, when he opened up, he started telling his story, and it was very similar to mine, about how he was in ministry and how life had gotten hard. He had had a lot of kids really quick, just like me, and he didn't know how to keep it all together. And when he shared his story and kind of the ways that he had gotten off track trying to deal with his depression and stress, it was like he had turned on the thermostat in a very cold room. And I felt myself starting to thaw out, and I didn't feel alone. And I felt like I could actually breathe, really, for the first time in a long time. And I think it's because I felt safe in that moment. And I kept coming back to this counselor. But he did something even more brave. He invited me to a men's coaching opportunity. And it's called Deer Camp. But he said, the way he got me there is he said, man, you can bring cigars and wine. And I was like, all right, I'm in. And so I went, but at this opportunity, I sat around this camp with some guys that weren't necessarily what I would call church people. They were just men. And for 2 days, I listened to men share their stories. And many of them had stories that were very different than mine, but I was picking up these pieces, kind of like when you played memory as a kid. You remember the little pieces on the board and where they were. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this piece, that connects with me. And some of the stories were tragic. And it opened me up to some things in my life that happened that were very hard. Things from childhood, about rejection, bullying, pains that turns out I'm not the only one that deals with them. And but those wounds that I had from childhood, and more specifically middle school and early high school, just hearing other men bring them up and share them in a safe space opened my heart up to want to be open to more of what's possible in my own personal healing. One of the things those men at that retreat invited me to do was to sit all the way down. And for me, that really became an image because I didn't want to deal with all these pains from childhood or my personal inadequacy. But when they invited me to sit all the way down, what they were saying is, Bill, you don't have to run away and run around about this. You can just sit down and you can be with us. We want to be with you. And there's nothing you could really have done, said, or do that would make us not want to be around you. And for me, shame fell off of my shoulders in that moment when they invited me to that, because again, I felt safe. I felt safe to just be Bill, not be a minister or something that, up on a pedestal. I could just be Bill the guy. And this was so important for me because in many ways there was a guy that was stuck in middle school and high school mode with life. And nobody wants, someone who's stuck in life to be running things. And that's what was happening. And I wanted the freedom. And when that shame rolled off of me, it created possibilities. These men invited me to ask myself important questions. And one of the most important questions they asked is, what do you want? I'd been thinking so much about what I wasn't doing that I should be doing. And I never had thought to ask myself as an adult, what is it that I really want to do? Am I doing these things because I love to do them, or am I doing these things because I feel like I have to do them? And the safety that I felt opened me up to a second piece of that, and that was they pointed out that I had no other men in my life at the time who I was fully transparent and honest with about what was going on in my life. I wanted to project myself as a man who was not necessarily that I had it all together, but I didn't want to seem weak. Again, that was a message from my childhood about, you gotta You got to be strong. You can't show your weakness to other people. And they allowed me to just be. I didn't have to be something for them. And that was very empowering to me. I felt valued. I felt connected. I felt like I had a place in some people. So, they asked me to sit all the way down. They asked me to just receive and be with them. And the third thing that they asked me to do over the course of time was to keep coming back. What happened that particular weekend unlocked some things in me that needed to be unlocked. But that wasn't all. It started me on a journey of curiosity and wanting to know what it is I really wanted. I found out that I actually really want a great family life. I want to be a great husband and a great dad. And I don't just want that to check the box. I really mean it. Like, I want to be all that I can be. And so when I started writing down what those things look like and what I felt like I wanted them to be, it turns out they were very true to who I am. There weren't a bunch of things that I gotta do or feel like I have to do. They were actually things I want to do. And inside of that, my work too. I connected to how I want to work. I love the outdoors. I really freaking love rock climbing. And it's a passion of mine. It's been a passion of mine. And it's weird because I'm in a totally mountainless state. But it turns out that when you connect to your passions, man, you come alive and you just go to a whole nother place. And I did. And it sounded strange in the moment, but I had to get rigorously honest with myself. This is what I really wanted. And so throughout the course of going to a couple of these events and keying in with what I call my community, they allowed me to feel permission to be authentically what I want to be. And one of the greatest gifts in all of that is how it's produced a better marriage. I'm a present dad, not perfect, but I'm present. I'm leaning more into what I want to be as a dad, an adventurous dad, connecting with his kids and doing fun stuff. I'm not just coexisting with my wife, but we live an adventurous life where we're learning from each other and we have shared dreams, and hers are hers and mine are mine, but where they collide, there's a shared respect and mutuality. And it's exciting. It's an exciting marriage. She has this analogy she uses called stand all the way up. And it's kind of like when you have a kid, your kid's a baby, and when they get to the point that, they're big enough to stand up on their own 2 feet, and you pick them up, a lot of times they pull their knees up. And it's kind of awkward, but what you do is you just pop them on the leg and say, stand all the way up. And it turns out they can. And I felt like these brothers that I have in my life have been like, Bill, we know the real you. We see it, and we know what you want. Bro, stand all the way up. Be who you really are. And that's what I keep leaning into, is that I'm not just who I should be, who I feel like I have to be. It's not this labor of life that got me into a deep depression anymore. It's an honest life of being real with other people and accepting the possibilities that, maybe my dreams and what I really want can come together, and that's the best thing for life. There's a piece in this that I can tell is already a little missing, and that's the piece about God. And I want to be honest. I feel like in my story, the God piece had gotten so convoluted because being in ministry and growing up in a Christian family, there was this sense of insecurity in asking God all the time, well, God, what's your will for my life? What do you want me to do? And I feel like there's a place in this where God has asked me back, Bill, what do you want to do? What I've learned through these men in this process is that God really loves me. And he's gone out of his way in some major ways to show that to me. He's brought people in my life sideways that I wasn't planning on being there, that showed me my true self and what was possible. And he's reintroduced himself to me, and I feel loved, I feel liked, I feel valued, and I don't feel like I have to hustle for him anymore. I feel like I'm with him. And on my bad days, on my hard days, I'm usually back into hustling for his worthiness and for how I can feel worthy for him. On my best days, I'm just Bill.